Welcome to SwaminarayanSpirituality.com. This is Sachin Karnik. This is the third talk or recording on the question of addiction, on the problem of addiction, and the solution that is given by Bhagwan Shri Swaminarayan Swami Sajanand Swamiji Maharaj in Vachanamrut, Garada Pratham number 11. Before we begin, I'd like to offer my prostrations to all the great sages and to the Supreme Lord, to Supreme Paramatma residing in the heart of all beings. In Vachanamrut, Shriji Maharaj, who is Shri Swaminarayan, has been asked a question. Vachanamrut Garada Pratham number 11, one of his saints, his Paramahansas, Shri Brahmanand Swami, Sadguru Brahmanand Swami, asked the question about Vasana, and we covered some of this in the first two recordings. Just a quick review. The question was about the form of Vasana. What is the Roop? Vasana nu Roops Shuche. Vasana nu Shu Roopche. This is the question. How can we recognize what is Vasana? And so Maharaj, of course, answered the enjoyments from the past that remain inside the Antakarana, and then the desire to enjoy things we haven't enjoyed yet. They also come inside the Antakarana. They erupt inside the Antakarana. That is Vasana. So we looked at that last time. I want to make sure that we are clear about addictions. Addictions has many components. And I'm going to go through a series of these and then we'll connect it with Vachanamrut in just a moment here. First of all, any addiction is a chronic and relapsing brain disorder. Now, there's controversy about this, but there's quite a bit of research that suggests that this is the case. Addiction, any addiction, whether it's drug, alcohol, gambling addiction, pornography addiction, shopping addiction, food addiction, internet addiction, or many other kinds are there. Any kind of addiction is characterized by a long-lasting and reoccurring or a recurring pattern of compulsive substance use or behaviors despite harmful consequences. Right? So the compulsivity, the repetition of the same use again and again, what will that do? It is going to change the way the brain works. So prolonged substance use or engagement in other addictive behaviors like gambling can lead to changes in brain function, brain structure, and brain chemistry. And particularly these changes occurred in the reward circuitry of the brain. So there are neurological changes. So the fact that Shriji Maharaj is describing what is Vasana, he's describing it using this word Ichha, which I talked about before. This is a more subjective way to understand what is Vasana. Vasana meaning desires. Vasana meaning what? The entire question of Vasana is so deeply fascinating. This is deeply fascinating and very relevant because this word Vasana, the way Maharaj is answering this question, it has everything to do with what we call desires. Desires, wanting, craving, etc. That is a way to understand this word Vasana. So, each human being can be afflicted by desires. Not that desires are necessarily one's enemy, but they can be. And one can get afflicted by them. So desires refer to the inclination of the inner self, meaning the Antakarana here, not the Atma here, of the Antakarana, the mental framework, the inclination of this mental activity towards the objects that have been experienced. Objects that have been seen, heard, or experienced in any which way in the past. It is an inclination of the Antakarana towards the objects and experiences of the past. And it also is the inclination of that internal mental mechanism that is the mind towards objects that have not yet been experienced. Shriji Maharaj's original Gujarati language there is Purve je Vishaya Bhogvya Hoy ને દીઠા હોય ને સાંભળે હોય તેની જે અંતઃકરણ વિશે ઈચ્છા વર્તે તેને વાસના કહીએ. He's defined vasana, meaning all these desires, including all the addiction desires. That the experience of these objects, of these drugs in this case, that has been enjoyed in the past. Purve je vishaya bhogvya. Bhogvya means enjoyed, bhog. So it's a very important word because it is the experience of the past. But again, the word experience and the word bhog are similar, but experience there's more involved in the word bhog than simply experience. There's a lot of energy involved in it. There's memory formation involved in it. There is the contact with the object, but then there is the sense of me, that I am enjoying it. I like it. I want this. That is the I, the me that is involved in bhog. So in Gujarati, this word bhog is referring to enjoyments, roughly translated, but it's more than that. It is a sense of the me that says, I am the enjoyer. I like this. That is called bhog. And then the experience itself, that is your first person direct experience, that is bhog. So Maharaj is saying, Purve je vishaya bhogvya hoy. Experiences of the past that have been enjoyed in the past. Ne ditya hoy, ne samble hoy. Things that have been seen in the past, that have been heard in the past, like music and whatnot. Objects of the world through the eyes we have seen. But it all goes back to bhog. And he's just kind of given more emphasis and more clarification to the two big avenues for that bhog, that is eyes and the ears. But other things are there too. Tongue is there, nose is there, so many things. Touch. So purve je vishaya bhogvya hoy, ne ditha hoy, ne samblya hoy, teni je antakaran ne vishay ichha varte, tene vasna kahiye. Within the antakarana is four parts: man, buddhi, chitta, ahankara, the mental mechanism. The desires that exist, subsist, that abide in the present moment, in the antakarana, those desires, Maharaj is saying, recognize that what is called vasana. That is the force of desire. That is the force of the past. So the answer that is given is about recognition. The question is asking Maharaj to explain what is vasana. Explain what is the nature of these desires. So this is a matter of realizing that when this occurs in the present, when these desires, these vasanas, these tendencies, when they open up in the present moment due to the past, one can recognize them for what they are. This is called vasana. One recognizes it. And in that recognition, there is the possibility of taking a dimensional jump out of those vasanas by doing three things. Okay, so in the second paragraph of this Vachanamrut, Muktanand Swami asked the question, who is an ekantik bhakta? Bhagwan no ekantik bhakta kene kahiye? How can we recognize, how can you define who is a great devotee, an ekantik devotee? So Maharaj answered this question in the context of going beyond vasanas. So there's three things mentioned here in this answer. One is, I'll say in Gujarati and then I'll translate for you. Jene Bhagwan vina biji koi vasana na hoy. Point number one. An individual, a bhakta, has only one vasana. That is to connect with Bhagwan, to connect with God. The connection with God, that is a desire also. Sachin can say, I want to connect with my Ishtadevata, with my chosen deity. Okay, one can connect, no doubt. One can try to connect, but the connection can be, or needs to be, where that one connection is all that one wants. Even the other things or activities are going on, no other vasanas are active, right? So that's a stage of development. So again, but the way this is described here in Vachanamrut, this is a description of a state of ekantik bhakta. So the transition out of vasana into this state, we'll talk about that in a little while here, maybe next recording. But remember, Vachanamrut here is describing, Maharaj is describing what the ekantik bhakta is like. It is a state of realization. Implied in that state is also how to get there. We'll talk about that in a moment. So, jene Bhagwan vina biji koi vasna na hoy, ane potane brahmarup manine Bhagwan ni bhakti karto hoy, te ekantik bhakta kevai. These are 3 points here. There's no vasana except the vasana for God, except to connect with Bhagwan. To want God, that's it. Number 1. To please God, that's what that is. Bhagwan vina biji koi vasna. Bhagwan vina meaning Bhagwan ne vishay vasna. There is vasna, there is desire, there is deep-seated desire based on the past and all, but it's all God-related. Jene Bhagwan vina biji koi vasna na hoy. Biji koi means not a single one other than that. Other than to please the Lord, other than to connect with Bhagwan. That's the only vasna. The jene Bhagwan vina biji koi vasna na hoy. When he says na hoy, that means the devotee is in that state. In that state where there is no other vasna. Okay, now the question of how to get there, we'll talk about that. It's implied. You'll see that. And then the second point is ane potane brahmarup manine. Point number 2 is to consider deeply through faith that you are the Brahman. All of Advaita Vedanta is in this one, these 4 words. Ane potane brahmarup manine. Manine meaning it is the belief initially, and then through that belief that I am the Brahman, I am the Atma Tattva, I am Satchidananda, I am pure awareness, I am, I'm free, and all those ideas, all those things are to be believed. That this is, rather than the belief that I am these vasanas. The belief generally is I am the vasanas, and then the vasana gives it experience. So one is identified and caught inside there. And then the Jivatma is lost inside there, right? That is the Jiv Anvay Swarup. So we don't want to be lost. So Maharaj is reversing that process. Don't be lost in these vasanas. Get identified with the Brahman. So now this is where Guru also can be added to this point. The Brahma Swarup saint or who is present now. If you feel that there is a saint who has realized the Brahman and is living, talking, breathing, eating, continuously the bliss of God, Brahmanized saint, as it is called, or the Bhagwan na Dharak Sant in Gujarati. If there is a recognition, then to recognize that is my state. That state that I'm seeing in that individual, that's me. That is the Brahman. That is the divinity, the sadhuta, saintliness. That is the whole point of Guru, is to awaken that state within the disciple, and the disciple, the Shishya, grabs hold of that state by deep love for great saints. So anyway, all that can be interpreted in this. You can expand that further if you want to. Ane potane brahmarup manine. But point here, Maharaj is saying, consider yourself that these vasanas are not you. They are occurring within you. The individual is stuck with them, entrapped with them. That's not who you are. The endless number of problems created by addictions, none of that is who you are. All these things, chronic and relapsing brain disorders like addictions, neurological changes occur in addiction, tolerance effect, withdrawal effect, loss of control, impaired judgment. All these are the problems. Cravings, negative impact on life's domains, denial and rationalization, co-occurring disorders, so many things. So to get out of all of this once and for all, a permanent way out, Shriji Maharaj is showing 3 points. Get to that point where all desires kind of get funneled into only one desire, that is to please God, to connect with God. Point number 1. Point number 2, in doing that, consider yourself the Brahman. You're not this limited being, you're not these vasanas, you're not these limited desires, you are the observer, the witnessing consciousness. And that is Brahmarup Manine, to believe that deeply. But now what he's saying here, in that state that you are the Brahman, in that feeling, in that faith, in that conviction that you are Brahmarup, in that state, in that feeling, conviction, he says, Bhagwani bhakti karto hoy. The devotion towards God continues. We perform devotion without sometimes being in that state of the Brahman, with that feeling that I'm the Brahman. It's not just a feeling, it's more than that. It is a deep conviction that I am immortal, I am absolute, I am eternal. And in that state of mental conviction, in that state of conviction, do bhakti. So the bhakti is done. Bhagwan ni bhakti karto hoy. That means that the individual, the bhakta is performing bhakti this way. Then ekantik bhakta ke. So in ekantik bhakta, a devotee who is ekantik means single-pointed, who is completely focused on realizing God. An ekantik bhakta doesn't want anything other than to connect with God. He finds all joy, all happiness, all realization, all truth only from the swarup of Paramatma, and not from anything other than that. And that is, so if one is diverted away from God, away from that Swarupa Paramatma, that is all Maya, as per Vachanamrut Garada 1. Right? So, this is a solution to the addictions problem. It's a direct solution. Now, if a person realizes this, these 3 points, brings them together, keep only one vasana, bring all the desires to only one, that is towards Paramatma, let all other desires go. Vihaya kaman yah sarvan puman sharate nispruha nirmamo nirahankara, as the Bhagavad Gita says. Let all the other desires subside. We're performing activity in the world with only one desire, to please God, to connect with God. Everything else we're doing as a way of living in this world, surviving in this world, serving the world. That's it. But there's no vasana towards this world at all, or people or objects or whatever it is. Other than God, no vasana towards anybody. Kind of an equanimity towards all, serving all, loving all. Vasudeva Kutumbakam. Yes, that's fine. But no vasana in the internal mental mechanism, and the desires within are not connected anywhere with great interest except to realize Bhagavan. Everything else there is vairagya towards that. There is jnana also. One doesn't run after the objects of the world. And people do that in addictions, right? For example, addiction is an object. I mean, this addiction is a psychological phenomena, but the objects are there. The casino games are there, or the slot machines are there, or whatever it is. The cigarettes are there, cocaine and heroin and methamphetamine and barbiturates and all these. What are all these things? These things create some effect. That is the bhog. Maharaj has already talked about that. That is the bhog. But that bhog is binding, and the person gets bound and bound and bound and bound. And then this entire series of problems, things like negative impact on life domains, cravings, that is vasana, intense urges and cravings for the addictive substances or behaviors are common, making it very difficult for the individual to resist or abstain from them. So it's a prison. It's a psychological, mental prison that is generated this way, right? So the solution is actually very, very straightforward to the addictions problem. As per Vachanamrut, is right here, Garada Pratham 11, 3 points. All that is needed is for an individual to come to that point, come to hold that truth, and just stay with that. Even if other desires come, let them, ignore them, literally ignore them, bring the mind back again towards connection with God, akhanda vritti. And by doing so, this process becomes straightforward once there is a deep conviction that you are the Brahman. You have all good qualities. You have all saintly qualities. You are not the limited being stuck inside Maya. You're not the limited being stuck inside the 3 gunas of Maya. So with that jnana and satsang, with all the other scriptures and all the other ideas coming together, they come to this point only. You are the Brahman, and to worship Paramatma, Parabrahma. So bhakti and jnana are together. So it's dharma, jnana, vairagya, bhakti. All 4 are in this. When you have no other vasana except God, what is that? That is bhakti in one sense. It is also vairagya in another sense. It is also dharma. You will not go outside certain boundaries, because you go outside of them, other vasanas will increase and it will divert one away. So dharma, jnana, vairagya, bhakti, all 4 are in this line. That's the way it goes, folks. That's the solution to the addictions problem. This is our 3rd recording. We'll talk much more about it in many other ways on this Vachanamrut and many other connections and many other ways of seeing. But the truth is really straightforward. It's just a matter of accepting these words of Maharaj, not just as a blind faith, to accept them, to experiment with them, to try it out and see if it works. And if it's not working, that means that not that the words are faulty, it's because we have not synchronized 100% with what is written there. To synchronize 100%, but there's no other vasana except God. How? Wow, that itself is everything. That will obliterate the addiction problem or any other kind of vasanas within the mind. The ichhas, the desires that keep coming and coming and coming and coming. We'll talk more about it in subsequent recordings. Thank you so much. Jai Shri Swaminarayan. May the Lord, may God, and all the great sages bless all. Thank you.